As a kid, I remember feeling like I was in a perpetual state of moving, packing up our things, saying goodbye to friends made and then lost, wondering what the next new place would offer. When I ask my mom about this, she isn't able to pin down the exact number of these moves or the order in which they happened, as they often occurred within weeks or months of one another. People often assume that I grew up in a military family, but the reality is that my dad was the ultimate seeker of the alluring but elusive next best thing, despite the instability it created for his family. Money was elusive too, so we didn't have much to pack, but my little collection of books acquired as birthday and holiday gifts over the years always found its way into a box labeled Wendy. So regardless of where I was, Beverly Cleary's characters were right there with me. Ramona Quimby pedaled along Klickitat Street, getting into trouble with her best friend Henry Huggins and annoying her big sister Beezus. And Judy Blume's Margaret Simon navigated relationships with new friends in her new New Jersey town, wanting them to like her, but knowing her Jewish faith set her apart in ways that brought confusion and pride. I guess, for me, books were home, our home. They serve as placeholders in my memories, the geographies of self that I carried with me across the years and across state lines. I remember the nubby texture of the yellow and brown patterned carpet in our kitchen trailer as I sat with my back against the oven door, seeking warmth when I learned that Old Yeller had died. I remember the sunlight that streamed through our duplex window and lit up the pages as I entered the fantastical land of James and his giant peach. And I remember feeling independent as I sat in the green space at the end of the road, having traveled there by myself on my bike, reading about the glamorous adventures of Jessica and her twin sister Elizabeth at Sweet Valley High. So you can imagine how I felt when I got older and learned that adults wanted to deny kids access to many of the books that I held sacred. Would-be censors of James and the Giant Peach, for example, raised concerns about the tobacco and whiskey enjoyed by James's insect friends, the inclusion of the word ass, children disobeying authority, the promotion of communism, and the sexually suggestive nature of the spider licking her lips in anticipation of a meal. Those of us who feel deeply connected to story readily argue that literature can change lives. It can open us to new ways of thinking, it can affirm who we are, it can offer avenues for who we want to be. The irony is that censors use this same reasoning to justify their actions. Literature can change lives, they say. It can lead young people to question the beliefs taught in the home. It can invite disrespect, confusion, and rebellion. It can encourage risk-taking behaviors that are immoral and potentially destructive. Literature's power to invoke change, then, is a double-edged sword. Stories can cut and clear, creating new paths and ways of seeing, and stories can cut and concern, closing down these paths and creating insularity instead. As a scholar who has reviewed reports of censorship over the decades, I've learned several things. First, I've learned that censors seek to protect young people by eliminating their exposure to ideas that can create discomfort or guilt, worry or wondering. They want to keep kids for as long as possible. They go after books like Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl, Bridge to Terabithia, and Charlotte's Web, deeming them unacceptable because they are sad. In Kittanning, Pennsylvania, a parent worked to eliminate Dragon Wings by Lawrence Yep from the 8th grade curriculum, concerned that the book includes words like demon, dragon, and beast. She explained, if you have an impressionable 12 or 13-year-old and someone asks him if he wants to go to a cult meeting, he may be curious enough to go because he learned about it in school. I've learned, too, that censors want schools to be apolitical spaces. Holocaust stories, they argue, do not do any good and only tend to cause racial problems, and that instead, our children need to learn more about our founding fathers and our American heritage. This version of our heritage, however, should not include poems by African Americans about racism, as such titles reflect dishonor on the United States. When schools diversify their literature curricula, censors are quick to argue that the resulting stories don't belong in schools. In Erie, Illinois, the superintendent supported parents seeking to ban Todd Parr's The Family Book from the district's elementary schools because of a reference to same-sex parents. He claimed, "We're still going to teach tolerance, we're still going to teach diversity, but under no circumstances will topics involving alternative lifestyles be discussed at the elementary level. Our community has very clearly said that they would rather have those topics discussed at home." And I have learned that censorship is grounded in distrust of authors, librarians, and teachers. In Cheshire, Connecticut, 2 books were pulled from the curriculum at 4 elementary schools in response to parental objections to words like damn, Christ, hell, stupid, heck, crap, and shut up. A school board member supported the removal, arguing, "Remove this trash from our system, find out who put it there, and fire them." Obviously, this material was written by someone with a perverted mind. In reading literally hundreds of these cases, what I have really learned is that censorship is grounded in fear. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of losing a world that one believes to be good and right and true. But facing our fears through story is ultimately a good thing. As a young reader who moved often, sometimes leaving a school after just 2 months, authors became some of my most trusted educators, teachers who exposed me to hard and essential lessons. Mildred Taylor introduced me to the Logans, a Black family living in Mississippi during the Great Depression. She asked me to think about what it meant for me to be poor, but white. Sandra Cisneros taught me beautiful words like abrazos, abuelita, and esperanza, and asked me to question why my school counselor in Arizona insisted that I study French instead. And Rosa Guy introduced me to a Black queer romance and showed me that love is love is love. Adults who, in the name of protection and preservation, labeled these books as dangerous gave in to fear, failing to see that pain and discomfort are necessary to the creation of better selves, a better world. Their censorial sword leans on the edge that cuts off, severs, disconnects. It shutters young people from a world that holds great beauty and promise in defense of suppression rather than liberation. Dominant narratives have historically and contemporarily perpetuated inequity and injustice, but dominant narratives are simply the stories we tell ourselves. Revision is possible. Literature can change lives, and readers with open access and open hearts can change the world. Thank you.